Today we are going to talk about sentence semantics. But what is sentence semantics? It's a part of linguistics that focuses on the meaning of sentences. Particularly, it deals with how words are combined to form different meanings. Thus, our study of sentence semantics will start with the idea of proposition. So, what is a proposition? A proposition is the semantic content or the main idea that a sentence expresses. Or we can also say that a proposition is the core idea or statement that can be true or false. In other words, a proposition is what is being asserted, questioned, or expressed in a sentence. For example, the proposition Mary calls a doctor may be expressed in different forms, such as did Mary call the doctor? Will Mary call the doctor? Mary called the doctor. It was Mary who called the doctor, and so on. As we can see, the proposition may occur in different sentence types and with different focuses. That means that it can be asking questions or just making a statement. A proposition is divided into the predicate and its argument. For example, in this sentence, Mary calls the doctor. The predicate would be calls and the arguments would be Mary and the doctor. Now let's see what's the argument of a proposition. An argument is any of the various elements of the sentence that are set in relation to another by the predicate. Typically, it's a noun phrase. For example, Anna eats an apple. In this sentence, Anna is the argument and also an apple. What's the predicate of a proposition? The predicate is the action carried out on an argument or arguments. It places arguments in relation to one another. So predicates are typically verbs, and it's also important to highlight that predicates differ from respect to valence, which is the number of arguments that occur with a predicate. So what's a valence? A valence, as we said, it's the number of arguments that can co-occur with a predicate, or the number of arguments that a verb can have. So the valence of a predicate refers to the number of arguments it can take to form a complete and grammatically correct sentence. And also there are different types of valences, like the 0, 1, 2, 3, and the less common 4-place predicate. The different types of valences include 0-place predicate, in which they don't have explicit arguments and they are usually impersonal expressions, such as it is raining. In this case, the predicate will be raining and the argument will be it. Also, we have the one-place predicate. This kind of predicate have a single argument. In this case, we have the proposition John runs, in which the argument will be John. In the case of two-place predicates, they have two arguments, and in our example, which is Anna eats an apple, Anna and an apple are the arguments. In the case of the three-place predicates, we will have three arguments. For example, we have Peter gave a book to Mary. So in this case, the arguments will be Peter, a book, and Mary. Finally, the four-place predicate, in which we have four arguments, is less common, but it can also happen. So in our example, we have he flew from New York to Havana via Miami. In this case, the arguments will be he from New York to Havana and via Miami. Now let's go to thematic roles. According to Frawley, thematic roles are grammatically relevant relations between predicates and arguments. Also, Fillmore introduces the idea of semantic case, or the underlying semantic syntactic functional relationships. He conceives of these semantic cases as finite in number and universal, not language specific, similar to the semantic features. So thematic roles are semantic roles that describe the relationship between a verb and the noun phrases in a sentence. These roles help to explain the function each argument has in the context of the action. Thematic roles are used to understand who is doing what to whom, where, when, why, and how within a sentence, and they explain the functions of the argument in respect to the predicate. So, among the thematic roles, we have the following. We can have the agent, that is also called actor. It's the animate initiator, the cause or the doer of the action. For example, the logger fell in the tree. In this case, the logger would be the agent. Also, we have the force, which is the inanimate cause of the action. In this case, would be the wind. In the sentence, the wind felled the tree. So, agent and force are generally expressed as the subject of an active sentence, or in the biphrase of a passive sentence, like in the sentence, the tree was felled by the logger. Another thematic role would be the instrument, which is the means by which events are caused, or the tools used to carry out an action. In this case, instruments are most often expressed in a with or by phrase, like in the sentences, the tree was felled with an axe and the sweater was knit by a hand. Another thematic role is the experiencer, which is the animate being affected by the state of their action. The experiencer is normally the subject of a state verb. For example, here we have Marianne is lonely. In this case, we have two examples, Mariana is lonely or Mariana feels lonely and I like the book. Also, the source can be another thematic role, which in this case is the place from which the action emanates. For example, I got the book from the library. In this case, from the library is the source. And finally, the goal. The goal is the place or person where the action is directed. For example, in I sent a card to my grandmother. To my grandmother will be the goal. Also, it's important to take into account that an argument may play more than one role at the same time. In this case, we are talking about the dual thematic roles. For example, in Lucille sat down, Lucille has two roles, the agent and the theme. In this case, the subject both performs an intentional action and changes location. Lucille is playing two roles in this case. So, dual thematic roles refer to cases where a single argument in a sentence can fulfill more than one semantic role simultaneously. Also, it's important to mention and to take into account that besides the thematic roles we mentioned, there are other roles that the argument can play, such as the path, location, patient, and so on, and that they all are important in the moment of analyzing semantic meanings. Well, that will be it for now. Thanks so much for your attention.